My name is Jenny Burns, and I'm here today to interview Elizabeth Colbert about her Pulitzer Prize-winning book, The Sixth Extinction, An Unnatural History. Hello, Mrs. Colbert. Welcome.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm happy to be here.
Your book discusses the 5 major extinctions of the past, as well as the somewhat controversial ongoing one, the sixth extinction. What are some animals that are currently going extinct?
A few of the animals I mentioned in my book were the Panamanian golden frog, the staghorn coral, the great auk, and the Sumatran rhino. Minus the frog, all of these animals have been dying out because of humans. Poachers and hunters have killed off all known great auks of the world, and they have even put the rhinos on the endangered species list. Humans are very perilous to the evolution of the organic world.
Speaking of evolution, I find it remarkable that it's something that's constantly removing species, yet still diversifying the populations in our biosphere. But what environments create a large cause for speciation, and why?
One example of a habitat that is a large cause for speciation are the tropical rainforests, and the tropical rainforests are famous for having a nearly uncountable number of species. But there are many challenges to living in the tropics, and even a small difference in temperature can drastically affect the niches that exist in this environment. As species adapt to their changing habitat, more are constantly emerging as the previous species evolve. Each of these species must have a very small specific niche, yet they are all still important because they each fill their niches so well that if they die out, it will disrupt the entire ecosystem.
My favorite part of the book, where you speak about the ant-bird butterfly parade. I found it interesting that there was a whole population of animals that followed each other around mindlessly. Each organism was dependent on the organisms ahead of it for food, creating a chain of animals traveling from one ant's biovac to the next.
Yeah, I just wish I had seen it so that I could have elaborated on it more in the book. It sounded like it would have been a very interesting thing to see. I imagined it to be exactly like a moving ecosystem, basically.
So what happens if an animal does disappear in an environment? How does the fauna or flora adapt to recreate homeostasis?
An example of a time when the flora had to adapt to recreate homeostasis because of a lack of fauna was in the beginnings of the Quaternary time period. Many scientists agree that humans caused the extinction of large herbivores in Australia during that time. This caused the flora to flourish from lack of predation until fires began to kill them off. The few plants that survived gradually reproduced, creating offspring that adapted to the fires and became fire tolerant.
That's interesting, but I'm going to have to change the subject a bit. I've heard that most animals have a biological clock of some sort to inform them of mating season and breeding times and such. I would assume that this is a very important factor when deciding what genes get passed on.
Yes, mating seasons dictate when a certain animal will produce offspring. They make it somewhat convenient to find a mate because then most of the opposing gender of a species will also have that mating season alert going on in their bodies. The problem with that, however, is that if an animal's cycle is off by too much, they will not be on time to breed and contribute to the gene pool.
Wow, that's really interesting. Anyway, your book mentions that DNA is traceable, since it gets passed down from generation to generation.
Yes, so we do know, or at least most people do know, that DNA is information that is passed through a person to their offspring, and actually scientists have discovered that many humans, especially those with a more European background, have up to 4% shared DNA with Neanderthals, which means that at some point Neanderthals were our ancestors, and their information was passed down to us, and are now a part of every human that is living today.
Awesome. Well, this was informative. Thank you for coming.
Sure, Jenny, anytime.